My name is Claire Bennett. I am 29 years old. And 6 days ago, at the most important dinner of my career, my husband's best friend stood up in front of everyone and said something that made the entire room go silent. He claimed that I had been sleeping with him for the past year, that everything I had achieved, my promotion, my reputation, everything was built on lies and betrayal. He even had screenshots. He even had hotel receipts. Within minutes, my husband's entire family was staring at me like I was something they had stepped on. His mother whispered to the woman beside her. His father set down his glass slowly and looked at my husband the way you look at someone you feel sorry for. And my husband, the man I had loved for 6 years, married for 2, stood completely still at the head of the table. I waited for him to say something. I waited for him to look at me. But before he could, his mother leaned over and said quietly, firmly, like it was already decided, "You know what you need to do." What happened next is something I will spend the rest of my life grateful for. But I also need you to understand everything that came before it, because none of it makes sense without the beginning. I grew up in a small town in rural Ohio. My father worked at a manufacturing plant for 31 years. My mother cleaned houses on weekends to help pay for my college applications. We were not poor in the way that people imagine. We had food, we had warmth, we had each other, but we were never more than 2 bad months away from real trouble. I knew that about my family before I was old enough to have words for it. I learned to be careful. I learned to work hard. I got a partial scholarship to a state university, waited tables 4 nights a week, and graduated with a degree in marketing 2 semesters early. That is where I met my husband. He was finishing his MBA. His family owned a regional hotel chain, 4 properties across the Midwest, a 5th under development, old money mixed with new ambition. He was not arrogant about it, which surprised me. He was funny and direct, and he asked me questions like he actually wanted to hear the answers. We dated for 3 years before he proposed. I knew his family had reservations about me. His mother never said it directly, but I felt it in the way she paused before answering my questions at dinner, in the way she described her son's ex-girlfriends with a warmth she never extended to me. His father was more straightforward, polite in the way that keeps a door technically open, while making clear you are not really welcome to walk through it. But my husband always said the same thing when I brought it up. "They'll come around. Give them time. You're the one I chose." And I believed him, because I needed to, and because he never gave me a reason not to. I got a job at a mid-size advertising firm in the city. I worked hard, the way I always had. 2 years in, I was leading campaigns I had no business leading at my level, and I was doing it well. 6 months ago, my director pulled me aside and told me I was being considered for a senior account manager position. It was the kind of news that makes your chest feel too full. I called my husband from the parking garage, crying in a good way, and he laughed and told me he already knew, that he had never doubted it for a single day. The promotion dinner was his idea. A celebration, he said. Something real, not just the 2 of us with takeout on the couch. He wanted his family there. He wanted his closest friends there. He said, "Let them see you the way I see you." I should have known that was too much to hope for, but I wanted it too. I wanted that dinner to be the moment things finally shifted, the moment his family looked at me and understood, fully, without reservation, that I belonged. The restaurant was a private room in the kind of place where the menus do not have prices. His parents arrived first, then his younger brother and his wife, then 3 of his closest friends from business school, including his best friend, a man I had known for almost as long as I had known my husband. He had always been charming, easy in a room, the kind of man who makes everyone feel like they are the most interesting person he has ever met. I had never fully trusted him, but I could not have told you why. It was nothing more than a feeling, quiet and easy to dismiss. Dinner was warm in the beginning. There was wine, and there was genuine laughter, and for a stretch of maybe 40 minutes, I let myself relax completely. My husband gave a small toast, nothing long, nothing rehearsed, just honest words about what it meant to watch me work towards something and finally reach it. His mother smiled. His father raised his glass. I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the turning point. Then his best friend cleared his throat and stood up. At first, I thought he was going to add to the toast. That is how practiced he was. The way he rose, the easy smile, the slight pause that looked like he was choosing his words carefully. Everyone at the table turned toward him with open faces. "Before we go any further," he said, "I think there's something people here deserve to know." My stomach dropped before my brain caught up. He looked at me, not at my husband, at me. And there was something in his expression I had never seen before, something flat and deliberate underneath the performance. "I've been trying to figure out how to say this for months," he continued, "and I know this isn't the right time. But honestly, I'm not sure there ever is a right time for something like this." He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and set his phone on the table. "Claire and I have been seeing each other for the past year. And I think the people at this table, especially your family, deserve to know that before this goes any further." For one full second, no one moved. Then the room collapsed. His brother's wife gasped audibly. One of the other friends pushed back from the table slightly, like he needed physical distance from what he had just heard. His father set down his wine glass with a deliberateness that was somehow louder than a shout. And his mother closed her eyes for exactly 3 seconds in the way she did when she was composing herself, when she wanted to be controlled instead of emotional, and then she opened them and looked at my husband the way you look at someone you are about to rescue. "These are messages," his best friend said, sliding the phone toward the center of the table. "And these are receipts from the Hartley Hotel. February, April, and July." He placed 3 folded papers beside the phone. "I'm not proud of this either. But I couldn't watch her stand up here and accept credit for a life she didn't earn honestly." I stood up. My chair scraped back and I stood up because sitting felt like surrender. "That is not true," I said. My voice was steadier than I expected. "I have never been alone with you outside of group settings. I don't know where those came from, but I have never, not once, Claire." His mother's voice was not loud. It was quiet in the way a door closing is quiet. Final. "Please. I am not going to sit here and let him." "There are photos," someone said from the other side of the table. One of the friends had picked up the phone. "These look real." "They're not real," I said. "I don't know how he made them, but they are not real." His father turned to my husband. "Son, just that word, just the weight of it." I looked at my husband. He had not moved since his best friend stood up. He was still seated, hands flat on the table in front of him, and he was looking at his best friend with an expression I could not read clearly. Not shock exactly. Something more interior than that. Something being processed rather than felt. His mother reached over and touched his arm. "You know what you need to do," she said softly. "We will support you completely. Whatever you decide, we are right here." His brother nodded. His brother's wife nodded. His father looked at the table. The room had made its decision without a single vote being formally cast, and the decision was that I was guilty and my husband was owed a rescue, and all he had to do was accept it. I felt my legs go strange beneath me. Not weak, more like disconnected, like the floor had shifted an inch to the left. I had been here before, not this exactly, but this feeling, the feeling of a room full of people who had already made up their minds, where the truth was less compelling than the story. I had spent 2 years feeling almost welcome in this family. Almost accepted, almost enough. And now I understood that the almost had never been accidental. "I'm going to step out," I said. My voice came out quiet and even. I did not look at my husband when I said it because I was afraid of what I would find in his face, and if it was doubt, I did not think I could hold myself together in front of all of them. I walked to the small hallway outside the private room. I stood with my back against the wall, and I focused on breathing. The sound from inside was muffled but present voices, his mother's pitch rising slightly, the controlled rumble of his father, a pause. Then the door opened. My husband walked out alone. He closed the door behind him. He looked at me for a long moment, and I looked back, and I did not say anything because there was nothing left that words could do. Either he knew me or he did not. Either 6 years meant what I thought they meant or they did not. He said, "Did you?" It was not even a question. It was a space he was leaving open, and I understood that he was giving me the chance to fill it with the truth before he decided anything. "No," I said. "I have never. Not even close." I don't know what he's doing or why he's doing it, but every single thing he showed in there is fabricated. He looked at me for another long moment. Then he exhaled slowly through his nose. And then he said something I will never forget for the rest of my life. I know. Those 2 words hit me so hard I had to press my hand against the wall. I know you, he said. I have known you for 6 years. And I know him. Something shifted in his jaw. I should have known this was possible. I should have seen it before tonight. Your family. My family is going to hear from me, he said. But not tonight. Tonight I need you to come back in there with me. I shook my head. I can't go back in there. Yes, you can, he said. And you're not going to do it alone. He held out his hand. I stared at it. This hand that I had held in hospital waiting rooms and across dinner tables and in the dark when we could not sleep. This hand that I had watched gesture when he talked about things he loved, that had held our dog when she was sick, that had gripped mine in the parking garage the night I called him crying with good news. I took it. We walked back into the room together. His mother looked up with an expression that was already preparing relief, already rehearsing the comfort she would offer her son when this was handled. Then she saw our hands and the expression froze. My husband did not sit down. He stood at the head of the table, still holding my hand, and he looked at his best friend. I need you to look me in the eye right now, he said, and say it again. His best friend met his Gaza. And to his credit, or to the credit of however long he had been preparing this, he did not flinch immediately. I'm sorry, man. I genuinely am. But you needed to know the truth. Okay, my husband said. His voice was very calm. The calmness of something decided rather than something suppressed. Then here's what's going to happen. I'm going to find out exactly what you did and how you did it. And when I have all of it, every person in this room is going to hear it. He glanced at his parents. Every single person. His father started to speak. My husband held up one hand, one quiet, firm gesture, and his father stopped. Not tonight, my husband said. We're leaving. But this is not finished. He picked up my jacket from the back of my chair. He handed it to me. And then, without another word to any of them, he walked us out of the room. We sat in the car in the parking garage for a long time without speaking. The engine was off. The garage was nearly empty. My hands were shaking and I kept pressing them flat against my thighs to stop it. How are you? He asked. I laughed, which surprised both of us. I don't know, I said honestly. I feel like the floor is somewhere I can't find. I know, he said. Me too. Your mom looked at me like. I know how she looked at you. His voice was careful. I've seen her look at you like that before. I told myself it was just adjustment, just time. I think I was wrong about that. You believed me immediately, I said. You didn't even. I watched your face and you didn't. I told you, he said. I know you. He paused. And I've known him for 14 years. And there was something the way he stood up, the way it was timed, the way he had everything ready. That's not a man consumed by guilt. That's a man who prepared. He looked out through the windshield. The question is who else prepared with him. He spent the next 4 days working with the focus I had only ever seen him apply to the most serious things in his life. He called a friend who worked in cybersecurity and digital forensics. He pulled every record he could legally access. He tracked the hotel receipts to a card number that had been opened in my name without my knowledge, a card I had never held. He had the photos analyzed and got a written technical opinion that the metadata had been manipulated, that the original source images had been altered using editing software, and that 2 of the faces had been composited from separate photographs. He found the photographer not a professional, a freelancer who did side work, and the freelancer, when confronted privately, admitted that he had been hired to source and edit the images. He had been paid through a third-party account. The money traced back, through 2 transfers, to a personal account belonging to my husband's father. My husband did not call me when he found that last part. He came home instead, and he sat down at the kitchen table, and he was quiet for a long time. I sat across from him and I waited. My father paid for it, he finally said. I did not say anything. He paid for the photos. He paid for the hotel receipts. He must have told him what to say and when. He pressed both hands over his face and held them there. My father did this. Did your mother know? He lowered his hands. I don't know yet. Maybe she didn't know the specifics, but she knew something was coming. The way she looked at you when it started, she wasn't surprised enough. I had known, somewhere beneath the part of me that wanted to be wrong, that this was possible. The class gap had always been the real issue. I had not come into this marriage with connections or capital or a family name that helped theirs. I had come with myself, and that had never been enough for them, and a grandchild. An inheritance that would eventually flow toward the daughter-in-law they had never wanted had apparently been enough motivation to take it further than whispered criticism and cold smiles at dinner. What do you want to do? I asked him. He looked at me steadily. I want to go there. With everything. And I want them to look me in the eye while I say it. We went on a Saturday morning. I had not been back to his parents' house since the dinner. Walking through the front door felt strange, like entering a place that had been quietly reclassified, something that had once held warmth, however conditional, now exposed for what it had always been underneath. His parents were in the living room. His mother stood immediately when she saw us together. I think she had spent the week preparing for a version of this visit where her son arrived alone, or where he arrived with a request for their support in ending the marriage. What she was not prepared for was his expression, which was not wounded or asking for anything. It was the expression of someone who had already done the hardest grieving before walking in the door. My husband sat down across from them. He laid the documents on the coffee table. The technical report on the photos. The card records. The bank transfers. The freelancer's written statement. He laid each one down separately, without speaking, in the way you put evidence before people who already know what it will say. His mother looked down at the papers. The color left her face in a way that was almost physical to watch. His father looked up first. We did what we did because... I didn't come here to hear why, my husband said. His voice had the same quality it had in the parking garage, decided, not performed. I came here so you would know that I know. And so you would know what comes next. We are your family, his mother said. Her voice broke on the last word. We are your family. Everything we did, you tried to end my marriage, he said. You paid someone to fabricate evidence that my wife was unfaithful. You sat at that table and watched her stand there, and you let it happen. And you used my best friend to do it. He stopped. I have been sitting with this for 4 days, trying to find the version where I am wrong about what I'm looking at. There isn't one. His father started to respond. My husband stood up. I'm not asking you to explain, he said. I'm telling you what I know. And I'm telling you that what you did has consequences. He looked at his mother, and I watched something real move through his face, not anger, something more painful than anger. The specific hurt of discovering that love has conditions you were never told about. I love you, he said to her. And I can't be around you right now. I don't know if that changes, but I need you to understand that what you did to her is what ended this. Not me, you. He picked up the documents. He held out his hand to me. I stood and took it, and we walked out of that house, and I heard his mother begin to cry as the door closed. A real cry, the kind that does not have an audience. And even then, even knowing everything, it was still hard to hear. The weeks that followed were not easy. My husband grieved quietly and with discipline, the way he did most hard things, and I tried to give him space for it without disappearing. His best friend reached out twice. My husband did not respond. He consulted with a lawyer about the fraudulent credit card and the fabricated evidence. And while he ultimately chose not to pursue criminal charges, he said he did not want the next year of our lives to live inside a courtroom. He made certain that his father's attorney received a formal letter outlining what had been done and what evidence existed. That letter, my husband told me later, was the most important thing. Not punishment. Accountability. A record that said, we know, and you know that we know, and there is no version of events where that disappears. His brother called. It took 3 conversations, but eventually his brother said something honest that their father had told him and his wife, that I had been behaving inappropriately at work functions, that he had been slowly building a version of me in their minds for months before the dinner, softening the ground. His brother was quiet for a long time after he said that. Then he said he was sorry. That it was not enough, but he was. My promotion went through. I stood in my director's office on a Thursday morning and accepted the role I had worked toward for 2 years, and then I went to my car and I called my mother first. Because she had been cleaning houses on weekends so I could fill out applications, and she cried. And I cried, and none of the rest of it touched that moment. My husband and I are rebuilding carefully, the way you rebuild after something structural has shifted, not pretending the ground is the same as it was before, but finding that it can still hold weight. We talk more now. About the things we had let slide into assumption, about the ways we had each been absorbing pressure without naming it. I had spent 2 years trying to adjust myself into someone his family would accept. I am not doing that anymore. And he has said, more than once, that he is sorry it took that night for him to understand how long I had been doing it. He has not spoken to his parents since that Saturday. I do not know if he ever will. That is not my decision, and I have been careful not to make it feel like one. But I know this. The man who walked back into that restaurant holding my hand, who stood at the head of that table and said, "This is not finished," that man did not appear from nowhere. He was there the whole time. I just needed one impossible night to see it completely. I am telling this story because I know there are other women who have spent years adjusting, accommodating, quietly shrinking to fit into spaces that were never really built for them. I know what it feels like to love someone while also being half invisible to the people who surround him. And I want you to know that being believed truly, immediately, without reservation by the person who matters most is not too much to ask for. It is the foundation. Without it, there is nothing worth protecting. My husband asked me last week what I wanted for our life now. Not the plan, not the 5-year outline, just what I wanted. I thought about it for a real minute. I want to stop trying to earn my place, I said. I want to just be in it. He nodded. Then that's what we build, he said. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I believed him without the undercurrent of fear that had always lived just below the belief. Not because he had proved himself in a single dramatic moment, though he had, but because I finally understood that proof had never been the issue. The issue was whether I would let myself receive it. I think I finally can.